Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. It is a fine Monday morning, April 1st here in New York City. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer, Cris Carter. This is Nick Wright. Good to have everyone back. We will get to the official end of LeBron's first season in L.A. because it is over.
You guys got, like, different hairstyles? I know you got something.
Mine got shorter, and his is getting longer.
Yeah. Okay, I like it. A little cut, right?
Cut, a little something,
a little trim. Okay,
yeah,
I like it.
Jenna's hair looks lovely
Thanks.
today.
So, as does yours.
Well, let's not talk about my hair anymore.
3 days off, and look how long it is.
Don't need to start the day lying.
Yeah. It actually looks great.
Okay, thanks, Jenna.
Your hair looks
Appreciate that. What are we doing on the show today?
You need some product, man. You need that thing like LeBron has, like cover.
What are we doing on the television show today, America?
Besides LeBron, we'll talk about the New York Giants. They remain committed to Eli Manning. Wait till you hear for how long, but we're going to start with the Did You Watch game of the night.
Yeah, you need some product.
The phenom, freshman Zion and Duke taking on Michigan State. Jump to the end, 35 seconds left. Kenny Goins drilling that to put Michigan State up 2. 10 seconds to go. R.J. Barrett fouled. Duke still down 2. Barrett misses the first free throw, should have made. Made the second free throw, should have missed. Spartans looking now to just run out the clock, and they do it. The #1 overall seed, Duke, is out of the tournament. Tom Izzo and Michigan State heading to its 10th Final Four. Here is the head coach after the win.
When you're Duke, and everybody that beats Duke is, ready to put that on the wall, and because that's the program he's built, and that's one I'm hoping to still build. The respect everybody has for Duke is why it's a big game. But I do think we beat arguably the best team in the country.
A lot's obviously going through our mind right now. We're very upset, obviously, because, we wanted to go to the Final Four. But congrats to Michigan State. They deserve it. They played a hell of a game. And, just look around the locker room and see, like, your teammates and your brothers, and you just think, this group probably never will play together again.
CC, after we watched their last win against UCF, we thought, oh, my gosh, that got so close. But you always sort of knew Duke was going to win. I had the same feeling watching this game. It was close, but you always sort of knew Duke was going to win. How surprised were you that they couldn't pull it off, that Michigan State actually won this game?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the 2 previous games because they just barely got past UCF, barely got past Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech has it at the rim for an opportunity there, didn't convert. And in this game, it was back and forth. If you're playing Michigan State, especially at this time of the year, especially a chance to go to the Final Four, that's when they play their best basketball. So I'm not going to say I was surprised that Michigan State won. I talked to Coach Izzo on Saturday night. He was very confident in this team. He said, now, Cris, when we take the court, they got a lot more talent than we do. But I believe that the chemistry and the overall toughness that we have, that's the special ingredient that this team has compared to what Duke has. He thought it would be they would have to play a certain way. He knew they'd have to limit them as far as fast break points. He couldn't let them get out and make it like an NBA game up and down the court. And as you can see, they did that. 0 fast break points. And if you can do that to Zion and do that to Duke, then, man, you're going to have a heck of a chance at winning. So I'm going to say I wasn't shocked. Michigan State, I've been watching Coach Izzo. He's a good friend of mine. I watch how they play basketball. In big games like this is why you watch March Madness, is to build C matchups like this.
And for this weekend as a whole, this was the closest by score Elite Eight we've ever had. And you could argue after an underwhelming first weekend of the tournament, one of the benefits of not having a bunch of upsets in the first weekend, which generates the excitement, is you get the best teams possible in the second weekend of the tournament. All 4 games were outstanding. Listen, Duke was my pick to win it all. I said I'd take Duke over the field, so obviously I'm surprised they lost from where we were at the beginning of the tournament. But once you saw them only play 1 good first half in the first game against North Dakota State, they had a tip-in to lose to UCF, and then as C mentioned, a tip, or not even a tip-in, a shot at the rim for overtime against Virginia Tech. Duke didn't have one dominant great game this whole tournament. There wasn't one game all tournament where it's like, oh, the best version of themselves showed up. And there was one piece of controversy when the committee released the bracket. There was a soft bubble, so it wasn't about a team getting left out. It was, man, Michigan State kind of got screwed here. They're arguably the best 2 seed, and they get seeded with the best 1 seed. Well, the flip side to that is Duke got the best 2 seed, a team that has now won 14 of 15 games in its region just to get to the Final Four. And Cassius Winston played a game as well as a college point guard can play, something Mateen Cleaves never did in his championship tournament run, a 20-point, 10-assist game for Michigan State. And what you saw was the veteran team that was playing more team basketball as opposed to your turn, my turn, they got it done. Now, it came down to the very last second, but R.J. Barrett and Zion, for as great as they were individually all year long, they never quite figured out, and some of this on Coach K, the devastating 2-man game they could have had. It was more a LeBron and D. Wade first year in Miami. It's your turn, then it's my turn, as opposed to using the fact that Duke had the best 2 players on the court every time those 2 guys were out there to impose their will on their opposition. And Zion has been the case in a lot of the Duke losses this year, all of the Duke losses that he's played in. In the last minute of these games, RJ takes the shots, Zion does not, and this time it bit Duke.
And now we won't see those 2 play together
Nope.
because I'm sure this is going to be the last we'll see of them at Duke, at least definitely Zion. All right, did we overestimate how good Duke really was, CC, or did we underestimate how good a team like Michigan State could play them?
Well, we knew teams would give them a battle. As the tournament went on, teams progressively, especially the best, they get better and better. But Nick mentioned, in their previous games, they only played a stellar half in that first half of round number 1.
Second half of round 1.
Second half in round number 1. So they haven't progressively gotten better. As the stakes have gone up, they haven't done that. Now, they did have an injury where they did miss some overall continuity, but for me, it was good. The thing was surprising with me, in all these big games, these 3 games they've played late, offensively, just they weren't effective at the end of the game. Like Coach K, even with dead ball, timeouts, and things like that, he's not great.
Compare that to what Coach Izzo did in the 2. He called timeouts,
right,
and got the alley-oop play, and then timeout and got the open 3. Both of those plays he drew up.
And afterwards, the players talked about what were you going to do, and said, well, we're going to do something else. But the play we ran was a different option because they didn't give us what we were looking for. So with Duke at the end, you see him inbound the pass, and then RJ, he does get to the line. But was that the play? Just for him to dribble, drive, and everything? Like, you would think with Coach K, with his reputation, everything, with these games being as close as they were, at the end, I was expecting for him to be able to come up with some type of magic, and I didn't see that.
And that was something, if we're being honest, that what we didn't see from Duke all year was RJ and Zion getting the 2 guys on one side of the court, other 3 guys on the other side, where they could take advantage of those matchups. Now, some of that was because you didn't really have to respect those other guys because of the lack of shooting. We talked about how Duke would have been the worst shooting team to ever win a championship. But we shouldn't minimize what a disappointment this is for Coach K and for Duke. He's 72 years old. The one-and-done era is coming to a close in 2 or 3 years. This was the most talented team he's had in the last 20 years. And it's one thing to not win the championship. It's another thing to not get to the Final Four, to where you could have lost round 2, you could have lost round 3, and you did lose round 4 when you have the first, second, and third ranked recruits in the country. We're going to have an NBA draft here in a couple months. 3 of the first 6 names called will be Duke players. I guarantee you that. And to not make it to the Final Four is a major disappointment. And I don't know how much longer Coach K is going to coach when you're 72 years old and when you're about to have to. They have embraced one and done like Kentucky has. And you're going to have to change that here in a few years when the rules change. So this is a major missed opportunity and an enormous disappointment for Duke. And that doesn't take anything away from Michigan State,
of course,
which was a great team.
No, but when
year.
you're the team projected by just about everyone as the #1 seed with the #1 player to go over all the way, then yes, it is definitely a disappointment. Time now for Put a Grade on It, sponsored by CarMax. All right, so Zion had another great game last night. He scored 24, grabbed 14 boards. Nick, put a grade on Zion's tournament.
I mean, I have to give him a B because he didn't complete the class, so to speak. Like, he needed to play in at least 5, probably 6 tournament games, and that would have meant Duke achieved its goals. He was individually outstanding, but the team didn't play one A-plus game the whole tournament, so I give Zion, despite his overwhelming statistical production, a B.
I give him an A because he did what he had to do for his team to win. They didn't get enough stops at the end of the games, didn't get any help from a bench call to be able to call a set at the end of the game. But if you look at him, I'm excited to see him play. I believe he grew his game from the beginning of the year, from the time he had the injury where he came back. Playing with that type of energy is infectious. It's a team game. It's not an individual game. And his team happened to not be able to win. I'll give him an A. He was outstanding.
All right, good stuff. Take a break. Coming up, are the Dallas Cowboys being slept on heading into next season? That's next on FS1, and you can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on SiriusXM. We're back right after this. Welcome back. We'll get to Dak Prescott in just a second, but first, March Madness. Zion Williamson with the amazing block. Has to duck so he doesn't hit his head on the backboard. That's how high he gets.
I mean, he was filling up the stat sheet, obviously, on the offensive end, but in this game, once again, 3 blocks, 3 steals. He did have one bad defensive play late on a critical possession, but his ability to come from the weak side and help defense is outstanding.
All right, Spurs and Kings. Rudy Gay with the big slam.
Rudy's one of my favorite players. I love the way, great fit in San Antonio. Who you like, Nick, that first round? San Antonio. Who you like them facing, bro? It's going to be tough.
I think they're going to be the 7th seed.
Okay.
I think it's going to be San Antonio, Denver. That's my guess. This was wild.
Yeah, Hawks and Bucks. And the Trae Young story makes the miraculous buzzer beater to top the Bucks in overtime.
Are all the Rookie of the Year votes in? Hey, people now.
They're not. I mean, they shouldn't be. You shouldn't cast your ballot until the 82nd game has been played.
In the last 30 days, Trae is making a push.
Especially because the Mavs can't win. The Mavs are trying to lose to keep the pick from going to the Hawks, so they lost 12 of 13. It's interesting. Talk more about that, maybe never.
Moving on. All right, so
on your radio show.
I found it
Vegas announced win totals for NFL teams next season, because Vegas knows.
Oh, yeah.
The Cowboys were projected by the experts to win 8.5 games, second in the NFC East to the Eagles. This comes after the Cowboys surprised many by winning 10 games and the division last season. Keep in mind, still a number of players the Cowboys need and want to sign to extensions after a relatively quiet offseason. Cece, how do the Cowboys take a step forward now this coming year?
I believe it has a lot to do with the offense. I like the way that the young players on their defense have progressed. But can that offensive line, can they get back to a level where maybe they're a top 5 offensive line? But I believe it all comes through their passing game and Dak Prescott. I know they've made some additions to the coaching staff. Kellen Moore, he's taken over and being the offensive coordinator. John Kitna is the quarterback coach. So I just believe last year Sanjay Lau took over, and in conversating with him, they were going to concentrate on the deep passing game. So I look for Dallas. Are there 4 to 6 games during the season where their passing attack can win them games? We know typically if you break down a game, that be in September or December, Jenna's like, Chris, what are the keys to the game? Hey, Jenna, they got to run the ball. Zeke's got to have a great day. But I just believe this year for the Dallas Cowboys, if they're going to make that jump to where they are, because I believe they're going to have a pretty good defense. Their passing game has to be more consistent. And 4 to 6 games, Dak's got to be able to win the game. And that's because they've put a lot of people close to the box, or it's a couple of games where they throw for over 300 yards.
On an NCAA tournament Monday, I think this is a very apropos question, because how will Dallas improve? The same way a college basketball team improves from one year to the next without a big recruiting class. Your sophomores and juniors get better. The guys who were there last year get better. That is Dallas's method for next season. They're not going to have any 5-star recruit coming in. They're not going to have any blue-chip McDonald's All-American that's going to be an infusion. Now, Randall Cobb is a nice addition and a bit of an upgrade, but it is about their young players, Zeke maintaining, Dak improving, Amari continuing where he was once he became a Dallas Cowboy, and those offensive linemen playing up to their salary levels. I think the defense is going to be good, not a great dominant defense. I think if they feel like we're going to go into the season and win games the way Baltimore did, I think that's foolish. I don't think the defense is going to be that good, especially with the loss of Randy Gregory as one of their pass rushers. And I know they have those 2 young linebackers they like a lot, but I don't think this is a top 3 defense. I think the way the Cowboys can continue what they were in the last half of last season is by being what they were in the last half of last season, a well-balanced team. In the last 8 games of the year, Dak looked like the quarterback he was his rookie year. They had a legitimate passing attack, so they had a top 8 offense married with a top 8 defense. That's the Cowboys' method moving forward. Do what you did last year consistently for an entire season, not just in fits and spurts, because I don't think they can sustain a 6 to 8 game slump from Dak like they had to start last season, because I don't think Philly's going to be dealing with the quarterback injury and their fits and starts the way they did last year.
You mentioned Kellen Moore and John Kitna. Are you worried at all about the experience within that? I mean, forget Jason Garrett just because he hasn't had such a heavy hand in calling plays the last couple of years. Are you worried about the experience and the coaching staff on that offense?
I'm worried about the lack of play calling ability. They don't have someone on that staff that's called a play in an NFL game. And we know that Dallas, there's a lot of always noise in Dallas. It always gets hot at some point in the season. At some point in the season, it will be questioned, are these guys good enough to be Dallas Cowboys coach? You don't have any play calling experience. All these games come down in the fourth quarter. Can you make a play? Their coaching will be criticized an awful lot. And can they be able to stomach that? What's going on in Dallas? It happens every year. So Jason Garrett, I wouldn't be surprised if this year, if he leaned a little bit towards the offensive side from a staffing standpoint to be able to help them out, to be able to ease that burden, because, yes, it's a legitimate question. I don't care if a guy, if you gave him the title and he doesn't have a resume, why wouldn't we question it? I don't know who Kellen Moore is going to be as an offensive coordinator. What's his philosophy?
Right.
What does he do when if he's backed up? What does he do if he's a third down and short? Like, what's his theme? Well, which part of the team is he going to take advantage of? So I'll be listening to a lot of the sound bites that come out of Dallas, listening to interviews, because I really don't know, and I'm not going to guess. I know he's going to be under a lot of pressure. In that part, there will be a lot of eyes on offense coordinator and John Kitna, the new quarterback coach.
Given their restrictions, salary cap-wise, because they seem so dead set on giving Dak a premature extension, along with they have to extend Amari, I think they will extend Zeke this offseason. They could wait until next offseason. And we know the situation with DeMarcus Lawrence. I like their offseason moves. I think Randall Cobb's a good move. Over the weekend, a little undercover move. They traded for Robert Quinn, a guy who could be a pass rusher opposite DeMarcus Lawrence, and they got him for a 6th-round pick to turn into a 5th-round pick. Very little compensation. George Iloka should help their safety group. So when you are bargain shopping, right, I think they've done by my eye, I think they've done a good job with that. So those players should help a bit, but it's going to be about the Dallas Cowboys, who were there in 2018, being as good or better than they were that year in 2019.
You make a good point as far as some of those players they picked up, because when we see teams like New England and the Rams, both of those teams from last year's Super Bowl, look at some of the veteran players that they were able to pick up. And Ndamukong Suh on a 1-year deal. We saw the New England got pass rush help. Mm-hmm. We saw they got the left tackle, Trent Brown, to be able to shore up their passing duties on that. But also, let's not forget, you have to develop a couple players, not second or third. You have to go out and there have to be a couple guys on this roster right now we're not talking about that they become part of the story. And you have to depend on that coaching staff to be able to go out and find them. Defensive coaching staff, do you have someone who can create some turnovers? That being on the front end with those defensive line, which they got a couple spots available, or on the back end with that secondary that doesn't create a lot of interception. And if we're talking about them during the season, that's because that coaching staff has gotten these guys up to speed.
And on the offensive end, I think within that building, the guy they are hoping is the person Cris is talking about is Michael Gallup. The wide receiver they took in the 3rd round last year, the wide receiver that adds an extra dimension of speed, that with having Amari there for a full year, Cobb is a legitimate guy in the slot, that Gallup can be a guy that emerges as a potential legitimate number 2 receiver in this league. On the defensive side, we know who the names are. We know Van Der Esch, we know Jalen Smith, we know Byron Jones. We already mentioned DeMarcus Lawrence. They added Christian Covington, the D tackle from the Houston Texans. Michael Gallup's the guy I would pinpoint on if the Cowboys offense takes the next step, he will have to be a big part of it, because I don't think the tight end they brought out of retirement is going to be that guy.
All right, Cowboys hoping to play even better next year. You know who else is? The Lakers coming up. Does LeBron have any chance of turning things around in L.A.? That is next on First Things First. On Saturday, we got a doubleheader for you on FS1. First, Mike Trout and the Angels face the Rangers at 4 Eastern, followed by Chris Bryant and the Cubbies taking on Christian Yelich and the Brewers. Great start for Yelich. That's your guy.
Absolutely. I was about to say, it's too early for an MVP discussion in baseball.
But if
Yelich
it wasn't,
trying to defend his crown, man. Back to back.
But if you produce the show, you can put it in there.
Time for us to go viral. So Zion Williamson's time at Duke was filled with high points. One very low light might have been when he busted through his Nike. Are you wondering where that shoe is right now? Because Zion is. The shoe has gone missing and has a reported value of $250,000.
You got any ideas, C? Some equipment manager? Maybe some fraternity prank at Duke University gone awry? What do we think here?
Quite an elaborate prank if it was.
I would say it got busted up just like their bracket. So
this is the type of thing, though, they say $250,000. If it shows up for sale somewhere, I mean, the cops will be on the case. Tough thing to sell.
Right.
Tough thing to actually get any value for.
But what are the cops going to arrest you for?
Theft. You can't.
If it ends up in your hands and it's stolen.
It's the stolen property.
Misplaced, man.
Misplaced it. I misplaced it. Like that should have been.
Was he trying to keep it or was it a
semantics?
souvenir?
I don't know, man. Like that should have been the guy. Remember the guy that stole Brady's Super Bowl jersey?
Right.
Out of Houston? Man, I don't know how it happened. I know you got me on video putting it in my bag.
Walking out of the
badge,
locker room.
doing the whole thing.
All right, time for stories to start your morning. This one's sponsored by Gillette Clear Gel. The Final Four is indeed set. Michigan State will take on Texas Tech, while the remaining one seed, UVA, will play Auburn. Nick, now that your bracket is busted, who do you like to win it all?
Said that I thought the winner of this tournament was going to come out of the East region. Duke was my pick, but if it wasn't Duke, Michigan State's now there. They are looking great. But UVA, man, after getting through that scare in the first round, UVA is playing their best basketball, their first Final Four in 35 years. I think that will be the final, Michigan State and UVA, but I'll go with Coach Izzo's guys.
Yeah, of course. Stay off of Michigan State.
I knew it.
Because that's my guy and everything. I love Michigan State. I think the way they've been tested. But watch out for Auburn. They beat the three winningest programs in the history of college basketball. If you look at what they've done, Kansas, North Carolina, and Kentucky, taking them down, they're the most tested, even though they're without one of their star players.
All right, to the NFL now. The Eagles' newest addition had a bold proclamation for Carson Wentz and the rest of Philadelphia. Deshaun Jackson said, "We are chasing jewelry." See, you expect the Eagles to compete for the Super Bowl next season?
Yeah, D-Jack, slow down, man. You just got the talent.
You just got there.
I mean, you just got the talent. You haven't won one game, but we're chasing jewelry. Yeah, we know that, but you don't have to say that. It wasn't even April yet.
I understand Deshaun's point, though, because under Howie Roseman, this Philadelphia Eagles team has been in win now, right now mode.
Understand.
Well, I like the
making a proclamation in March.
I like the confidence.
Yeah.
We're now in April.
I did have Duke.
I did have Duke.
Now I got Michigan State.
You know what? It's easy for you to not be wrong on the bracket. I took Duke.
This year, I told you it was wide open. You're like, oh, no, Duke is clearly the favorite.
We're supposed to be talking about Philly. Speaking of wrong predictions, Philadelphia and Super Bowl chances. Listen, I understand what Deshaun Jackson's saying. Well, I was wrong about Philadelphia's Super Bowl as well.
Whoa, there we go again. That's what I wanted to talk about.
That's what you want to talk about.
Those predictions.
Moving on.
Brady's going to be done.
Dusty.
Just next week.
Get this guy.
The 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo missed almost all of last season after tearing his ACL, but head coach Kyle Shanahan said Jimmy G should be full go at training camp, and he looks like he could play today. See, what do you expect from Jimmy G and the 49ers next year?
Man, I'd like to still put some weapons around Jimmy G. I'm glad he is healthy, but as far as quarterbacks, those guys who are on, they're on the ascend, it's a big year for him next year. And they got to put some support around him. I believe they'll throw to their backs more than they throw to their wide receivers. They got one of the special tight ends that we've ever seen in the league. So I hope that combination grows this year.
Jimmy G, this is the year that if he's going to become more than an idea, It's this season. Jimmy G has been a nice prospect since he left college, but that's all he's been. We haven't seen him play more than half a dozen games in an NFL season yet. They need him to play the full 16 in a division with two, I believe, excellent teams in Seattle and the Rams.
Yeah, things didn't go well since he had that one little date thing.
Oh, you're always going to blame the date.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, he went out with the older lady. Something happened.
Moving on to the Lakers now.
I don't think your issue is with her age as much as profession. Go ahead, Jenna.
They announced on Saturday
No, I'm cool with that
they will shut down LeBron for the remainder of the season, and that means he'll have played only 55 games this year. That's the lowest of his career and probably one of the least memorable. But according to Luke Walton, LeBron took some convincing.
Yeah, he wants to play, but it's one of those things where the medical staff has finally said, look, it's just not worth it anymore. Let's make sure you have a healthy summer. So that's the decision that was made, and we'll move forward without him on the floor for the final 6.
All right, CC, if you take a step back and you look at what LeBron did in L.A. in his first season, what do you make of it? How do you sort of summarize LeBron's first season in L.A.?
Well, it's not good. They're going to end up with, because this is the thing, LeBron is there, but what else do we have confidence in? And the confidence that we did have in LeBron was, man, he's not going to get hurt. His overall durability. He's so consistent. And, man, if we can just get him to the playoffs. Well, they didn't get to the playoffs. And some of the other things I believe are critical as far as entrusting each other. Do they have that in moving forward? Because I believe that in selecting this team, I believe that Magic Johnson and LeBron were a part of that. So now in selecting this next coach and these next set of players, who's responsible for that? Like, who else are they going to bring in to make so that the thoughts are diverse in the room? Because last year, Magic was convinced, you got to have playmakers. You got to have, you got to have some shooters, all right? There's nothing more important than that three-point line, shooting it and defending it. But how are they going to get this collection of players together? Are they going to be able to pull off a trade for Anthony Davis or lure another big-time free agent? So I'm concerned about it because I don't know how much confidence the Lakers have in LeBron because they've been with him for a year. They've been seeing him in the East dominate, and then now he came to the West, and the players, because I believe there will be players left over. And those younger players, like I thought they were going to have a better bond than what they had, but they witnessed it. From a media standpoint, man, we get scrutinized a lot. Man, LeBron can be irritable as a teammate. And then they talk about, man, they had a meeting about the body language. That's LeBron James. That's what he does. He always does that. People don't like LeBron, say he's pouting. Others who are fans of LeBron just say he's very demonstrative on the court. So I just believe that there's some repairing that has to be done because when LeBron came to L.A., I wouldn't say they have more confidence in the LeBron plan now than we've already wasted a year. So he's gotten hurt. How much confidence do we have in Rob Pelinka and Magic Johnson? The head coach is getting ready to be fired. So, to me, it's not like they're starting all over again, because you can never start all over again. But they really missed out on a great opportunity to be able to build. I thought in years 2 and 3, they would be ready to compete for a championship.
But that took into account that we thought this year they were going to get some playoff experience. That this year LeBron wasn't going to show a vulnerability with injury. Like, that isn't to say they can't compete for a championship in year 2 or 3, but how disappointing is this year? This is disappointing as a year realistically possibly could be. They're going to win a couple more games than they won last year. It's not only that LeBron got hurt. They're going to be hiring a new coach. They're going to have almost an entirely new roster. We didn't get to see the development of the young players. Kuz, he played at least at the level he played last year, maybe a little bit better, but he ranks dead last in the NBA in wide open threes. Dead last in wide open 3 percentage. That ain't great. Ingram has a serious health issue, not an injury, a serious health issue that came right at the time when he was finally showing the promise that made him the number 2 overall pick. Lonzo was a guy who Lonzo Ball fans would tell you, man, his value shows up in more than the box score. You can't just look at his numbers because what he does defensively.
But he has to be available.
Right. But he sprained his ankle in the middle of January, never to be seen again.
Right.
And so that's the young player.
He's going the right direction because he got rid of those ugly shoes.
Well, absolutely, and maybe is going to be liberated some from his father in that company. But that's a separate issue. And then there's the roster building part. Where did this season go wrong? We could point to December 25th when LeBron James got hurt. And that is the biggest moment of the season. But you know when the season probably went wrong? In the 2-week stretch when they gave $21 million to Contavious Caldwell-Pope and Rajon Rondo. And then followed that up a few days later by giving $11 million to Lance, JaVale, and Michael Beasley. There's $32 million to players, none of whom were productive for you. Now, I backed the Rondo signing. I thought it was a smart signing. And I still feel like, man, I know he can be a productive basketball player. He's been the least productive guy on a plus-minus standpoint on the entire roster. I thought he would be a good mentor for Lonzo. None of that actually showed up on the court. So how many times did this year go wrong? It went wrong in the offseason. It went wrong when LeBron got hurt. It went wrong a couple days before LeBron got hurt when he was asked by ESPN what it would be like to play with Anthony Davis. And he said, duh, that would be amazing. And evidently, whether it should have or not, that really unsettled the young players. It went wrong once Anthony Davis made his trade demand. It went wrong when all that stuff was leaked. It went wrong when LeBron came back from the injury and was as passive-aggressive as he's ever been, and he's a guy, and I know we're going to get into it, has been known for some passive-aggressive stuff. And it went wrong, I think C would argue, when they didn't shut him down 3 weeks ago, when they could have done this earlier. And so how many times did it go wrong? About once a month, every month. And how big of a missed opportunity it was like this year never happened, except next year LeBron's a year older. That's what happened.
Wow. Well, that puts a period on it. I mean, that's all of it right there, up to and including perhaps the team mismanaging LeBron's injury, which we haven't even gotten into when we found out later that it was far more serious than it was. But I want to talk about what you both brought up, this players-only meeting that was held. Within that meeting, one of the issues brought up was LeBron's body language and the way he has sort of held himself for a stretch of games throughout the season. What do you make of the fact that the young players felt the need or the desire to bring this to his attention?
Right. The only way you can have a team meeting is everyone can speak. And you have to always make that clear. You can't have the guys that make the money or the guys who always have a speaking role, that they're the only guys that are going to talk. You have to have those guys, and each one has to be on equal footing. So you want people, younger and old, to be able to say the things that they've had problems with. And I'm sure that they had. This wouldn't be the first time that someone ever said that I got a problem with LeBron's body language. That's the way athletes are. Some people respond positive to it, and others do respond negative. I am glad that they did express that because it's real. You have teammates and how you're going to affect them. Ultimately, do you change? Can you change? It's really up to the athlete. I just know over the years, I had to make a lot of changes because I used to call the quarterback out. I'd be like, man, you're supposed to throw it over there. That's cover two. Like I used to say things and do things that definitely make the guy look bad. But Warren Moon set me straight one time. And after that, I was a better leader.
What
and
did
I
Warren
learned
Moon
from
do?
well, I thought that he should have thrown it a certain way. And I was demonstrative as far as my arms and everything, as far as, man, I thought you were going to throw it right here. And then he pulled me to the side and let me know things wasn't going to be operating like that. And for me, I learned a valuable lesson. He just said, it's not good. It's not good for you. It's not good for me. You can come back. You can talk to me. I'm open to suggestions. But people will be watching you, and they won't know what we're talking about, but they'll think there's a problem between you and I. And LeBron James, he's had that. I've watched LeBron at every step along the way. His body language has always been bad.
The best part of that story that you left out is to give a little window into how Cris Carter was as a player. That Warren Moon thing where you were upset you didn't get the ball, that happened at practice, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I love that element of it. And he told you
practice is important.
No, I understand. And he told you, if I can repeat the story quickly, Cris, during the game I'm gonna throw it to you. So calm down a little bit, my man. But to the LeBron thing, this is something I know for a fact, that the people closest to LeBron have gotten on him about this for years. He says the same thing to them. He said to those guys, I know. I've struggled with it. I'll be better. And I don't want to say he can't control it because we all can control our own decisions, but he has not shown the ability to reel this in. The only place that I think he didn't do this was high school, where you can't get mad at your teammates when you're going to be the number one pick and these are 15, 16, 17-year-old kids. Since he's been to the NBA, starting with his rookie year, he was a guy that if someone was not in the right place or someone did not do the right thing And later in his career where it's been really bad, where sometimes where he doesn't do the right thing, he then makes it look like, no, you didn't do the right thing. That is part of the deal with LeBron. That is not a new Laker version of LeBron. He did this with the Cavs, did this with Miami, did it the first time with the Cavs. That's not an excuse, but he acknowledged it. According to Dave McMenamin's article, he said, I've struggled with this my whole career. I'll try to get better. And it's not that shocking. The immediate next game, which was a tough loss to Memphis, he was way better and then fell back into those old habits. He's going to be passive-aggressive on the court. That's just part of the deal with him, not that it makes it okay. But I do think it's good the players brought it up, and I think it's good that LeBron in the meeting didn't deny it, because anyone close to LeBron will say it's the worst look he has on the court. He's such an unselfish teammate in how he plays, but some of his gesticulations are very me, and that's not the character of basketball player that he is.
All right, so we've laid out everything that went wrong in year one. What has to happen so all of those things don't get repeated in year two of LeBron now?
Well, they got the better construction of the roster. How they're going to go about it. First, they have to be able to put the big piece in there, and that is, are they able to trade for AD, or are they able to get one of the big-time free agents? Because there's a huge difference between, if I trade for AD, it's going to cost me some of my assets, it's going to cost me some draft picks. If I'm able to get one of these big free agents, how do I manipulate the roster around Ball, Ingram, Kuz? What roles do they play in those other little spot players that are going to play between 8 to 15 minutes? Can I get some more shooters? And from a big man standpoint, they have to change the direction for which they're going at. So that's the way that they get better. But it starts with either the trade for AD or talking one of the other big-time free agents. Kawhi Leonard is the best option from my perspective to come to Los Angeles and play basketball with the Lakers and not the Clippers.
When you said, as an aside, they obviously have to figure out the big man thing, that is extra salt in the wound of Laker fans this year. It was revealed this weekend that the trade that sent Ivica Zubac to the Clippers didn't even call the Lakers. They didn't even know Zubac was available. The Lakers called them and said, hey, will you take Zubac and Beasley for Mike Muscala? And the Clippers just said, yes, deal, is sold. We'll hang up the phone. And reportedly, Jerry West told that story, dined over that story, and laughed about how the Lakers wanted to open a roster spot. That's why that trade happened. They could have just waived Michael Beasley. Instead, they trade away a promising young center to bring on Mike Muscala, who will not be a Laker next year. But yes, it has to start with getting another top 10 player. Unequivocally, absolutely, if the Lakers are going to have any hope next year of being something other than a team that wins 40 to 50 games and gets bounced in the first or second round, they have to bring in another star player. But then they also have to figure out, can Magic and Pelinka construct a roster? Yeah. Or is the other addition you have to make someone to guide them in the front office? And oh yeah, by the way, they got to hire a head coach. So let's figure out who that head coach is going to be. And we don't know the answer to that. We know who the name of candidates are, but we also know who's going to be available. It is like I said, Jenna, it's like this year didn't happen, except now LeBron's going to be in his age 35 season instead of his age 34 season.
And meanwhile, it's April, and LeBron James is no longer playing basketball this season for a first. Coming up, could Duke's loss change how coaches build their teams now moving forward? That's still ahead on First Things First.
Hey guys, it's Nick Wright. A quick word from our friends over at Indochino. Did you know that made-to-measure suits fit better compared to generic off-the-rack suits? Many say that a man looks better and feels more confident when he puts on a suit. Indochino is exactly what you need. Indochino is the world's most exciting made-to-measure menswear company. Guys love the wide selection of high-quality fabrics and colors to choose from, not to mention the option to personalize the details, including your lapel, lining, pockets, buttons, and writing your own monogram. So here's how it works. Visit a stylist at a showroom of your choice located across the U.S. and have them take your measurements personally. Or measure at home yourself and shop online at Indochino.com. Choose your fabric, both inside and out. Choose your design customizations, submit your measurements with your choices, and then kick back and relax while your suit gets professionally tailored and mailed to you in just a couple weeks. This week, our listeners can get any premium Indochino suit for just $359 at Indochino.com when entering the code FTF at checkout. That's 50% off the regular price for a made-to-measure premium suit. Plus, shipping is free. Again, that's Indochino.com, promo code FTF for any premium suit for just $359 and free shipping. Incredible deals for a premium made-to-measure suit. Once you go custom, you don't go back.
Welcome back to First Things First. It's been an incredible season for the Milwaukee Bucks. They have the league's best record, arguably the league's best player, and presumptive favorite for MVP. They also have a general manager, and that's John Horst, and he joins us now. And we're the best general manager in the league. How about that? We'll throw that out there. It's great to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jenna.
Go ahead, Jenna.
John, if someone told you back in October your team is going to have the best record in the NBA with a couple days left in the regular season, what would you have said?
I
agree.
Yeah,
I knew.
Let's do
obviously.
It.
Yeah. Are you surprised with where you guys are and how you've managed to take what you did last year and build so far upon it that you're in this position towards the end of the regular season?
Maybe surprised that we're the best team in the NBA, best record, where we're at this point in the season. But the fact that we were going to improve, that we were going to take steps forward, doesn't surprise me at all. We had some great off-season additions, and starting with Coach Budenholzer, some of the roster things with Pat Connaughton and Brooke Lopez and Dante DiVincenzo. And Giannis has taken a tremendous step, and so not surprised that we've improved.
Can you take us through some of the processing? Because you guys thought you had some good pieces. You made some good decisions, but none better than when you had the opportunity, because that was a coveted job as far as Milwaukee. But when you got Coach Bud there, what did it unlock? Because there was something you potentially sensed in the interview that this is the guy.
Yeah, so Chris, I mean, we knew we had the best job. With Giannis as the player and the roster that we had, we lost to Boston in a 7-game series. We knew we had the best job, and so we were really intentional and diligent in our process. And spending time with Bud, it was clear that he was going to be able to unlock the talent in our roster. From an offensive perspective, defensively, he was really focused on improving our rebounding. You know, we went from one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA last year to the best rebounding team in the NBA this year. So we really felt like we could take big steps offensively and defensively. And he just style of play would fit having a guy like Giannis that can create so much space and so much opportunity for everyone else on the team. Bud would be the right coach for that.
Well, and you also saw, listen, that Atlanta Hawks team that won 60 games had a lot of really nice players, but did not have a superstar. Paul Millsap, Al Horford are nice players. Korver was having an amazing year. I think they had 5 All-Stars. But to bring that template to a team with arguably the best player in the league, now all of a sudden you have a real championship formula, but that needed Giannis to take the next step. Giannis has improved every single year of his career. He has gotten bigger. First few years, he was actually still growing height-wise, and now he's gotten bigger bulk-wise. When you saw Giannis this offseason, after coming off what was an all-NBA caliber season, did you see this year coming from him?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's progressively gotten better every single year. Physically, like you said, from a skill set. Bud is the right coach for him, so we have the right system. We've put in the right talent around him. And he's really improved in every area. Giannis has career highs almost across the board. His stats across the board are top 20 in the league from offensive and defensive metrics and in every category. And the guy's only playing 33 minutes a game. You know, I think he's the only player in the league in history to average 26 and 12 or 26 and 13
in less than
33 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable what he's doing right now. And so, yeah, I mean, we know how special he is and how lucky we are to have him.
We know where his numbers are. We also know where Harden's numbers are right now. Make the case for Giannis being this year's MVP.
Yeah, to me, it's really clear. So most valuable player to a team. We've got the best team. We've beaten Houston twice. We've got the best team in the East, the best team in the league right now, record-wise. We'll see what happens in the playoffs. But Giannis, offensively and defensively, is dominating this league. He's averaging 26 and 13, like we just said. He's also the only guy that's averaging over a block and a steal a game to add on to those stats. And so, offensively, he has a significant impact on our team, and defensively, he dominates the league as well.
Can you take us in with Giannis potentially being the face of the NBA? We hear about how much weight gain he's added. We hear about him adding strength in the weight room. Take us through like a day in Giannis, because we know superstars, but he's very, very different in his day-to-day approach in trying to be the best player that he can be.
He's a pretty simple guy, and I'm blessed that I've been able to around him for a long time now. He loves his family first, so he's family first. He comes to work early. He stays late. And he goes back and spends time with his family. And so he's all family in basketball, and it's not much more complicated than that.
There are some great, maybe apocryphal Giannis stories from his early time in the league. There's the story of when he first tasted smoothies that he then tweeted about, him taking food home to go that he couldn't believe was free, him sending the story I want to know if it's true is, and if it is, if you can elaborate on it, did he really send all his money home one day and then have to run to the stadium back and catch a ride with a fan? And if not, do you have a great Giannis story to share with us?
I don't know if I'll comment on that one specifically, but he'll probably get a little upset at me at this. But so Giannis, we basically had to teach him how to drive. I mean, he had spent some time driving a little bit when he was in Europe, obviously illegally. But when he came to the U.S., a couple of the guys that I worked with, we had to spend time with him teaching him to drive. So we're on the way to his place. He's driving my car. I'm riding. It's not a driver's ed vehicle. And he's like just doesn't even brake to go into a left-hand turn. So we're going about 30 miles an hour, and he just makes this left turn. I'm freaking out, like grabbing him, trying to get the brake. So he's an unbelievable guy. Again, for us to have him in Milwaukee and for us to have him this entire time has been great. And the things that he's doing is really special. Knowing the person he is makes it even more special.
We'd be remiss if we didn't ask about his ankle, how it's doing, what your game plan is for the next couple of days and for the remainder of the season with him.
Yeah, Jenna, great question. He's fine. He's going to be fine. The ankle, he's just kind of re-injured it here a few times, kind of stepping on feet, bad luck. And so really we just need to get the strength up. And so he may play tonight. If not, he'll definitely play on this trip.
I would imagine he wants to probably play, right?
Oh, yeah, no,
the playoffs?
He's extremely hard guy to rest or to hold out for any reason. And now he does have a real ankle issue, and so we've got to be very careful with that.
Giannis has been very, very consistent as far as he wants to be in Milwaukee. He doesn't want to play with anyone else, doesn't want to chase rings and everything, wants to bring a championship to Milwaukee. How do you go? Is it too early to start talking about Giannis and his future in Milwaukee with him being so open about this is my home?
You mean with him, is it too early to
Yes.
talk? No, we talk every day. We have open dialogue, and he's a part of, like, he's a resource. He's a resource to building this team. Coach Budenholzer is a resource to building this team. So Giannis and I talk about the roster. We talk about the types of guys that he wants to play with, the types of fit that we want to have, and no, we talk every day.
And I would imagine part of the reason you guys do something like sign Eric Bledsoe to an extension is not only because he's having a great year and he's been awesome, but to show the investment, to show that, listen, we are not going to let one of your best teammates get away from us this offseason or in a future offseason, and we are trying to build something sustainable in Milwaukee. I would argue not that different than what they built in San Antonio. That's the model I think the Bucks are probably looking for. Smaller market, superstar that doesn't necessarily need all the attention in the world, but might be the best player in the world, like what they had with Duncan. But the things those Spurs teams did, obviously, was win championships, was make deep playoff runs seemingly every year. In the Eastern Conference, which team do you think is the toughest matchup? Having watched this team all year, what's the team that you think presents maybe the most trouble for you guys?
Yeah, it's a great question. First of all, we got to get out of the first round, something that we haven't done in 17 years here in Milwaukee. And so that first round series is going to be tough. I think at Orlando and Miami and Charlotte, and in Brooklyn, who we play tonight, those teams are battling and they're all playing well. If we're lucky enough to do that and we're able to get out, you're into a second round that's really, really good. Boston maybe underachieved a little bit at points this year, had some injury issues, but a team that beat us in 7 games last year. Philadelphia, with all the talent they have and in the way that they're playing, I think it could be extremely tough. And then Toronto's the best team. They've had the best sustained success left in our conference to this point. And so I think no matter who we play, it's going to be a tough matchup, and I think we'll be ready for it, though.
Are you guys kind of worried about the MASH unit that has become your team in the last week or two? You guys are pretty beat up at not the best time to
She's
be
going back
beat
to
up.
injuries.
I'm sorry. I want you to be healthy and happy, hitting that stride for the playoffs. But you guys are pretty beat up.
Yeah, no, we are. So last night we had 7 guys out with injury.
Yeah.
That's over 50% of our roster, basically. And so for us, I think we're being cautious. We have real things that are going on, but I think everyone has real things that are going on at this point in the season.
Sure.
We're fortunate that we have a 3-game lead in the Eastern Conference right now, a 3-game lead overall to have the number 1 seed.
So a little bit of a cushion.
Yeah, so we have a little cushion, and so we can be cautious and careful with these things. If we were playing Game 7 of the NBA Finals today, we probably have 6 guys that were healthy yesterday. And so I think we're managing it. We're taking care of the guys. They have real issues, and we're trying to get through it and get us to the point where when we start the playoffs, we're as healthy as possible.
You opened the door for me there, so I'm going to walk through it. Speaking of the NBA Finals, if you guys get there, if you get through all those checkpoints that you mentioned, how does this team match up with Golden State?
Yeah, I think we've had, if you look at what we've done over the last couple of years, not just this year, we've played Golden State tough. they're the best team. They're the reigning champion. It'll be an unbelievable opportunity to play those guys and a challenge to play those guys if we could do that. But I think we match up well. I think we have the best player in the league. In Giannis, I think he's the MVP. I think he's the Defensive Player of the Year. And I think if you have the best player, you always have a chance. And so start with that. We have a great coach. And Giannis has a great supporting cast that fits in. We have an all-star in Chris Middleton. I think Eric Bledsoe could have been an all-star. And so I think we have as much talent and as well coached as anyone in the league. And I think we have the best player.
Tell us about the Fiserv Forum, your new arena. Tell us about it a little bit.
No, Fiserv is awesome. So we've had 33 sellouts this year. Our average attendance is actually over capacity. We've been selling standing room only tickets all season.
Nice.
It's got great sight lines. It's great concourse and food, which all the fans love. It's been a really
Who came
really
up with the court design? I like that. Yeah, the colors on the court and everything. It's really nice.
The marketing side, Dustin Godsey and Peter Fagan, who runs our team, the team president, they do a great job with that stuff. We actually have 3 courts. 3 different kind of variations, or we've played on 3 different variations throughout the last year and a half, and so they do some fun stuff with the courts and jerseys, and it's been great.
And this was a big deal for you guys in that community. I remember when they did the ribbon cutting or the groundbreaking was a big deal. But to have the right timing, when you get arena funding passed, you don't know what the team's going to be like. You know, years down the road. But to have Fiserv Arena come into play at the same time Giannis and this season's happening for you guys, from the non-basketball, just the business perspective, has to be ideal timing.
Yeah, it's been an unbelievable ride to see the way that Milwaukee's grown, the downtown area, the arena itself, the developments around it, and to have a team that's #1 in the league and have a player like Giannis, and again, a team that's coached by Bud, it's been really a lot of fun to be in the downtown area.
It's been exciting covering you guys this season. A fun team with a really bright playoff future, and we're really excited. So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys.
And good luck to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Take a break.
Thanks, Chris.
Much more First Things First right after this. Welcome back to the show. Super Bowl champ Chris Canny joins us. Chris, good morning.
What a weekend for our friend Chris Canny. His alma mater, which has always been a basketball school, if we're being honest.
Okay.
Virginia makes its first Final Four in 35 years.
Yeah, so
congratulations, man.
So much shade coming.
What do you mean?
I mean, you know what? I understand. You know why he's doing this, CC?
I'm just happy for you.
Because he thought his school was the real orange and blue when it comes to athletics in the ACC. Just had to let him know it's not going down like that.
Listen, I'm happy you guys
we're in Minnesota. We're going to Minnesota.
Happy.
He's also a Mets fan.
So. We can't make the Final Four every year at Syracuse. What is it, 2 of the last 5 or something? I'm happy for you guys.
Okay.
It's a good win for Tony Bennett and the crew.
See?
Congrats, man.
All right,
sincerely.
let's talk football then.
Bad guy. He's just a bad guy.
That make you feel better?
Just a bad guy.
Eli Manning. Hey, people thought it was a mistake when the Giants didn't draft his replacement last spring. People thought they'd never make that mistake again. Those people are not happy today. Looks like the Giants are doubling down on the 2-time champ in Eli Manning. Reports are the Giants are considering keeping Eli, not just for 2019, but for 2020 as well. Kenny, how surprising is this?
I'm hoping that this is just posturing by Dave Gettleman to throw people off the scent of the Giants being interested in one of these quarterbacks at the top of this year's draft. Because that report right there, when they're talking about Eli Manning not only being the guy for the entire 2019 season, but being your starter going into 2020, that's crazy to me. And the thought of having to extend him in order to do that because he's going into a contract year, that's asinine. Like, there's no way that you can justify doing that for Eli Manning based on the production that he's given you the last several seasons. I thought what they did last offseason was an attempt to be able to put the talent around him so Eli Manning, you could get the best out of him. But clearly, Eli Manning's no longer a quarterback that can elevate the play of everybody around him. You gave him Saquon Barkley. You retooled the offensive line. You had one of the best receivers in the National Football League in Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, at some point, we just have to stop running out of excuses for Eli Manning. And I know that's tough coming from me because I'm a former teammate of Eli, won a Super Bowl with Eli. But I realize that this is not the same quarterback that won Super Bowl 46 MVP. It's just not. The Giants have lost 50 games in the last 5 years, and baked into that is an 11-win season. So that just shows you how bad this team has been. 4 of the last 5 years, double-digit loss seasons?
Right.
That's unacceptable by any standard.
But you can't dismiss this for this one reason. When they didn't draft a quarterback in 2018, it was almost a guarantee we would be in this position in 2019. The quarterback's a position that you can see a year out on. And by that I mean this year, if they do not draft a quarterback or trade for Rosen, then of course Eli will be the quarterback in 2020. Like, unless the season goes so far to hell that you end up with the #1 pick, you draft Tua, then you don't know. If you don't draft your guy or get your guy a year early, you don't know who's going to be there the next season. So whenever you leave the cupboard bare on who's going to replace your aging veteran, you know you run the risk that the following year, the aging veteran is just going to be an even more aging veteran. So I don't think it's just posturing. I think it's the Giants recognizing we might not be able to trade up for a quarterback. We might not want to pay the price to move into the top 3 if that's necessary. Maybe the Patriots will trade the 32nd pick for Rosen if he comes available, and we don't want to trade the 17th. Like, there is an element of course it's possible that Eli's there in 2020, which when a lot of people think he shouldn't have been there in 2017 is going to feel devastating, but that is the situation that the Giants find themselves in.
I'm with you. All right, and I don't have to apologize because I didn't play with the Giants. And I'll let you know, I watched the whole season. Eli didn't lead y'all to no Super Bowl. He happened to be driving the car in those critical moments, but that was a very, very good football team. And this team that he has now, I would say there's not one area that they are better besides their running back than that team that won a Super Bowl. So what we're looking at is 2 totally different things. So I don't have to apologize. I believe Dave Gettleman and what they're doing is I believe they're just fooling the public. I believe this is all just a bunch. Because I looked at their roster. They ain't got 5 players that I would make as a starter in 2020. Like, I'm looking up and down. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, I might get the guard, Hernandez. I might let him, okay, because he's new and everything.
Ingram.
The tailback is definitely going to be there. Nate Solder, I paid him a lot of money at left tackle. He's going to be there. And there's a couple guys on the defense with a roll of the dice. They can play in 20, let alone Eli. So I'm not going to be moved by this. I'm not going to allow the Giants with the 6th pick, with a couple quarterbacks potentially with the first-round grade. And let's not forget, they might use that second first-round pick to be able to draft someone or that second-round pick to try to trade. I believe they are going to get a quarterback because it doesn't make sense for someone in the Giants organization to leak in April, into March, hey, you know something? We like Eli so much, he's going to be even our quarterback in 20. So I'm not going to be concerned about this. I'm not going to be concerned at all. I believe this is just normal NFL pre-draft posturing. I don't believe Eli Manning will be the quarterback in 2020.
Chris Canty, who would you like to see be the quarterback for this Giants team? It looks like it's going to be Eli 2019 unless they get a young guy to sit behind him or Rosen, but it looks like those are the options right now. Trade for Josh Rosen or try to draft one of the top 2 guys in the draft.
Well, I love Dwayne Haskins, and we have been talking about him on this show for months now. I mean, in terms of what you're looking for at the quarterback position, his ability to be able to process information, I think it makes a whole lot of sense for the Giants to get their hands on him because I see him developing into one of those guys that can be a force multiplier, somebody that can be a difference maker, somebody that doesn't have to have everything around them perfect in order for your team to have a chance to compete week in and week out. But ultimately, it's going to be about Dave Gettleman having a conviction about a guy, whether he's trading for Rosen, Daniel Jones' name been thrown in there, Drew Lock, Kyler Murray. This is all about what Dave Gettleman wants. I mean, he's the guy that's developing the plan in terms of how to lead this team into the future. And so, to me, I think that the thing that the Giants have to focus on is being able to get their hands on a young quarterback. I think that's why you made the Odell Beckham Jr. trade a few weeks ago. I mean, you got the draft capital back in order to position the franchise to get a guy that can be a difference maker. Because Eli Manning, he's 38 years old. And Pat Shermer said it at the owners' meeting. At some point, Eli Manning ain't going to be playing quarterback for the New York Giants. Going into the last year of his contract, I think this is the right offseason for the Giants to address the quarterback position.
Yeah, and I think they should address it with Haskins. I don't think that they should trade for Josh Rosen. I do believe Josh can fit some places. I do like the price they're going to pay but for him as far as the fixed salary for the next several years. But I don't like the type of football. I don't believe his body's big enough, and I don't believe he throws the ball with enough velocity to be able to be successful on the East Coast. Haskins, born and raised in New Jersey, spent most of his time as a youth in Maryland, so he's played a lot of cold football, played in cold elements last year at Ohio State. So it's just not the prospect. It's the style. I believe he has a personality. He's very quiet, very family-oriented, not high maintenance, and I believe that would suit him well. He's got a nice little smile to him. I believe that would be nice on Madison Avenue, but ultimately he's got the big gun that can throw the ball in the windy conditions here. It's something that Eli benefited from. He's got a big-time arm. That's the reason why he's been able to have a long career. But Haskins is the right fit, not only personality for this market, but how he throws the football.
All right, we'll take a break, Canty. We'll see you a little bit later on the show. Coming up, Hey, can the Sixers compete for an NBA title this season? That's next on First Things First. Back here, First Things First, FS1 NBA insider Cris joins the show. Welcome.
Welcome back.
Thank you. It's always good to be with you guys.
Good to have you here. All right, we will get to Joel Embiid in just a second, but first, a little March Madness. Zion, watch this, the amazing block. Had to actually duck his head so he didn't hit the head on the backboard.
Duke lost, but it wasn't on Zion. Gave you 24, 14, 3 and 3 as far as blocks and steals. Filling up the box score this entire tournament just wasn't enough from the other guys.
Zion, when you bump into Nick Wright, he gave you a B. He gave you a B.
There's context for it.
I'm just saying, you're going to see him. He's going to be like, oh, man, I've been cheering for you the whole time.
I have. I can still give him a fair grade. What's happening here, Jenna?
All right, Clippers, Grizzlies, Ivica Zubac getting up to slam home the alley-oop.
Yeah, that's a guy who's playing for the wrong LA team. It's unbelievable. Did you read the story that said the Clippers didn't even call and ask about him? Yes. Magic just called and they were like, yes, we'll take him?
Yes.
Hawks, Bucks, and Trae Young, man, makes him the miraculous buzzer beater to top the Bucks in overtime. How good has he been?
Cris Broussard has votes on these things.
Rookie of the year. Right now I'm leaning Luka, but I'm going to do my intense study before I put in my official.
I hope
Trae
your colleagues and everything are waiting till the end to vote.
Smart.
Because the last 30 days, Trae's made a big push.
Oh, my God. I love him. I loved him coming out.
I think you like him because you think light-skinned people make it.
He's helping.
I'll be sure.
He helping. We coming back, Chris.
Oh
we
my
rapping
God.
Play
too.
time.
Right.
We rapping too.
That Jesse guy didn't do y'all no good.
Oh, come
On
on.
to the Sixers.
I wasn't claiming
We
him.
have to move on now. We have to. Sixers trying to become the first non-LeBron champ. Only Cece could say that. The first non-LeBron champs in the East this decade, and Jimmy Butler thinks they can do it. He told The Athletic, we can do something special. We talk about it every single day. We got to be the ones to go out there and do it. And the crazy thing is, I know that we're capable of doing it. All right, Broussard, what is the ceiling for the Sixers team?
The ceiling is the NBA Finals. I don't think they could beat Golden State or whoever. I'm assuming it's Golden State out of the West. But they could get to the finals. Now, that said, I think they're the third best team in the East. I like Toronto and Milwaukee better. But it wouldn't surprise me if Philadelphia got one of them in a series and beat them. The one thing, and I've said this on here before, the one team that I think Philadelphia does not need to see or want to see is Boston. And they've won, I think, 17 of the last 20 against Boston. Now, Boston's a mess. They lost 5 or 7.
Sixers the only team Boston does actually want to see.
Right. But so I don't expect that to happen. Right now, Philly's the 3rd seed, Boston's 4th.
The bracket's falling perfect for Philly.
Right.
It would have to be the Eastern Conference Finals to play them.
But here's the thing. If they meet in the conference finals, that means Boston's beat Milwaukee in the second round, and they're playing well. So if they're playing well, feeling good about themselves, the chemistry is there, I think they beat Philly. If they don't have to meet Boston, I think they got a good shot.
But I'm going to take a step further than you. You said their ceiling is the NBA Finals. Similar logic to what you had with Boston. If Boston gets to the Eastern Conference Finals, it will mean they have figured it out, they're playing well. If Philly gets to the NBA Finals, meaning they have beaten Toronto in the second round, and then either Milwaukee or Boston in the third round, it will mean that what we saw rear its ugly head in the playoffs last year, them playing 4-on-5 offensively, that they have found a way to solve it, that they are either coaching around it or they have changed their rotation late in games as such to where it's not an issue. It will mean Joel Embiid is playing the way we have seen him play for stretches this year, where he has been for weeks at a time the most dominant player in the league. If they get to the NBA Finals, their ceiling is to win the championship.
You think they could beat Golden State?
Yes. I don't think they, this is, as you would say, I'm not saying I would pick them. I'm not saying they would be my pick, but would I be shocked if we have a Golden State Philly NBA Finals if it goes something like, okay, we're going to play, you're not going to guard Ben Simmons, we're not going to guard Draymond Green, you have no one to check Joel Embiid, we have length to put on Steph and Clay. Like, there is a situation where I could see, oh yeah, Philly can be a tough matchup for Golden State. Neither team is deep. Neither team likes to go to their bench. They like to play their starters as much as possible. So what's their ceiling? The ceiling for the Sixers is to win the championship this year.
Would you say that about, quickly before you, Chris, would you say that about any team that wins the East?
No, I'd say that about Philly, and I'd say it about Milwaukee. I don't think Toronto can beat him in a series.
Even though his name is on the marquee, the voice that you just heard is not the reflection of the opinions of this show. All right? So for me, I believe because Philly is not a very good road team, to me the ceiling for them is the Eastern Conference Final. And I think that if you look at Philly's roster, outside of their starting lineup, they got a lot of question marks. And if I were to go to the finals, who is J.J. Redick going to guard? Like, how are they going to hide him on the court for Philadelphia?
Well, I think they'd have him guard Draymond.
Then you can post him up.
But now
that's the worst. That's the worst matchup for him.
And I hear you on Draymond, but he shot like 40% from three in the last month
2 weeks.
So.
Oh, last month. Okay.
Roughly, yeah. So he's been hitting. I'm not saying he's a good shooter, but he has shot better from there. And I think you can put Cousins on Embiid. Not that he's going to shut him down, but at least you have a big body to put on.
See, and I think that's the way to get Philly in the bonus immediately. I think DeMarcus Cousins get frustrated, start racking up fouls, and then Philly goes to the bonus, and they are an outstanding free throw shooting team. That's the other benefit Embiid gives them that you've pointed out a bunch, see, is not just him getting to the line, second most of any player in the league, but him racking up fouls on the opposition.
If he's getting that whistle, we have not seen Joel Embiid and the NBA whistle in the playoffs. Are they going to give him the Shaq? Are they going to give him those legendary where they are not going to allow you to just beat them up the way they do NBA centers? And I like the fact you're saying Boogie Cousins because Philly doesn't do as much pick and roll as they do as much dribble handoff. Boogie Cousins have a problem with the pick and roll, doesn't have as much problems with Philadelphia the way they run their offense. But I think and I think that where this team just getting together, they've changed twice this year in Philadelphia. Them getting to the Eastern Conference Final, I think that's a great mark for them. Try to get their roster re-signed for next year and then make a push for a championship.
Chris, we had Antoine Walker on the show last week, and he said he thinks this starting five in Philadelphia is the best, if not the second best starting five in the league, and definitely could compete with anyone. Where would you?
On paper, it's a great starting five. I mean, everybody loves Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Jimmy Butler, J.J. Redick. I mean, it's a nice starting five. Tobias Harris on paper, but there's some issues there. I mean, obviously Ben Simmons with the shot. That's all he should work on this summer. But what that does is if you notice a lot of times, especially late in games, he's playing on the post because they can't have him outside because nobody guards him. What does that do? That forces Embiid out to shoot threes.
And listen, and that was their issue last year in the playoffs against Boston, is you either had Simmons on the post, and if you didn't, then his guy was just sagging off him 6 feet and clogging up the lane.
And again, it pushes Embiid out because you can't have two guys in the post.
And it's why they absolutely could get bounced in the second round. But if we mention the NBA Finals, I just want to put something on its head. You mentioned who's J.J. Redick going to guard. My question is this: who's Steph going to guard? Because if they may play the finals and Steph, okay, we're going to have Steph guard JJ. Steph is going to be spending so much energy running off screens, just trailing, because they're going to run JJ Redick off a half dozen screens of possession.
I'll take my chances.
Okay, because that's the only.
The one thing the Golden State does is they're not as susceptible to the type of offense that they run that way because they switch to 1 through the 5. They switch better than any team. That's one of the reasons why they're so good defensively. So Steph presents more problems. Clay presents more problems than J.J. Redick running off a screen. How many points J.J. going to score? Well, even if he gets hot. How many?
Just real quick on that, I agree with you. They're going to switch. The reason Philly, because of the trades of Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler, to me is so interesting against Golden State is if Steph gets switched on anyone other than J.J. Redick, then they will clear out to that side of the court, get that guy the ball. Because Steph cannot guard off the dribble anyone else on Philly's roster. Ben Simmons too big, Embiid obviously, and Tobias Harris or Jimmy Butler. So he's going to have to try to stay with J.J. Redick. It's just a problem, I think, for Golden State that if we were to see those NBA Finals, they would have to address.
All right, Chris, we'll see you a little bit later on in the show. Coming up, could Duke's loss change how coaches build their teams moving forward? That's next on First Things First. FS1 is your destination for the day's best sports shows. Tune in for the big personalities on the big stories. We get you started right here, First Things First. You can catch it on Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern, only on FS1. Hey, it's time for us to go viral. Our very own Cris Carter accomplished a lot in his Hall of Fame career with the Vikings, but this weekend he got to check another thing off his bucket list, driving the jumbo golf cart at the Vikings Museum, blowing kisses to his fans.
Is that what you're doing?
I assume.
Yeah.
How's the
Vikings
weekend?
Nation. I had a great time. They have a tremendous museum.
Yeah.
They have a performance center, state-of-the-art, new practice facilities. Minneapolis is great. Final Four. Fans, oh, man, you're gonna love Minneapolis.
See, Final Four is in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Your guy, Coach Izzo, is there.
Yes.
You've got to go, man.
I don't know. I'm just checking on some stuff. I'm a little busy, Nick.
I know you're a little busy, but you can jump out Friday after the show.
You know something? I don't have the leisure of getting sick like Jenna or taking Fridays off like you.
You know what I'm
Okay,
saying?
first of all, I've
Taking
not been
Fridays.
sick at all this year.
I used to have this thing.
Not
People said I
once.
wasn't dependable, so now I just try to be the most dependable at my job. You know, just normal, just basics when you wake up. Not a real big goals, just little goals.
Okay.
Yeah, I might go.
One day off.
Okay,
and I
there
haven't
it is.
been-
There it
I
is.
might.
There it is. I was waiting for it. He
I
ain't
was trying
painting
to say a
himself
couple.
into this corner.
I was trying to have a
of
couple
not
spicy
going.
comments so I can get fired by Friday.
Stories to start your morning by your tongue, sponsored by Gillette Clear Gel. The Eagles' newest addition had a pretty bold proclamation for Carson Wentz and the rest of Philadelphia. Deshaun Jackson said, "We are chasing jewelry." See, expect the Eagles to compete for the Super Bowl next season?
Oh, Deshaun will have some jewelry on. I mean, he wears a lot of jewelry
yeah,
and
nice
everything.
jewelry.
But D-Jack, slow down, bro. I do believe, because I do believe they're the favorite to win their division, do believe they're in the playoffs, and I do believe they have one of the best quarterbacks in Carson Wentz. So, yes, but let us tell the story, D-Jack. All right? Since you left Philly, they won a Super Bowl, bro. Let's just small goals to start out. He's going to play a big part in them trying to get back there, though.
The Eagles are in a good position, I believe, because there's two divisions in the NFC this year that preliminarily it looks like there's only two teams that are realistic candidates for. It's the NFC East with the Cowboys and the Eagles, and the NFC West with the Rams and the Saints. I'm sorry, the Rams and the Seahawks. So there's other divisions you could kind of list them 1 through 4 in any area. So I like the Eagles in that regard, and I like what Howie Roseman's doing as far as keeping his foot on the gas after the Super Bowl, continuing to trade future draft picks to players, help them right now. But let's see how healthy Carson Wentz is, because they don't have the backup quarterback they used to have in Philadelphia anymore.
All right, to the 49ers now. Jimmy G missed almost all of last season after he tore his ACL, but head coach Kyle Shanahan said Jimmy Garoppolo should be full go at training camp, and he looks like he could play now. See, what do you expect from Jimmy G and the Niners next year?
It's an important year for Jimmy G. I would like the fact if they still added another wideout. Their tight end, George Kittle's one of the guys doesn't get enough publicity there in San Francisco. But this is an important year for a young quarterback. It's kind of that, I'm going to stop hoping type year, and he established himself as one of the better quarterbacks we have in the league now.
They say they think he's going to be a full go at training camp. I want to see if he can be a full go for the full season. That's the first question mark for Jimmy G. The first checkpoint he needs to get to is play 16 games. Play 10 games would be almost double his career high up to this point, and then see how productive he is over a full schedule. Jimmy G has been a really nice idea as a franchise quarterback for a few years now. That idea needs to come into actuality this season.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on him and this organization.
Yeah.
It's time to get some wins.
Year 3 of those 6-year deals for the coach and GM.
Moving on, big game last night. The phenom freshman Zion and Duke taking on Michigan State. Jump to the end here, 35 seconds. Kenny Goins drills this to put Michigan State up 2. Less than 10 seconds to go. R.J. Barrett fouled on the inbounds play. Duke still down 2. Barrett misses the first free throw. He should have made that. Made the second free throw. Should have missed that. Spartans looking to just run out the clock at this point, and they do it. The #1 overall seed, Duke, out of the tournament. Here's Coach Mike Krzyzewski after the loss.
These guys have been an incredible group for me to coach, especially at this time in my career, to be around a group that you love being around every day, that have accomplished so much, and really have been had the lead the whole year, with attention and schedule and everything else, and they've handled things so beautifully, and I feel bad for them. They're deserving of special things, and they have had a special year, but this not going to the Final Four obviously is a huge disappointment for us.
Coach K almost on the verge of crying there. All right, Nick, with Duke's loss, there are 0 one-and-done players now in the Final Four. What does the loss say about teams that rely on them, that rely on the one-and-dones to win the tournament?
Well, it's not just Duke's loss, it's Kentucky's loss, and it's really the last 4 years of NCAA tournaments now. We're not going to have 4 straight champions that are not one-and-done laden at all. Villanova was not. The Carolina team that won it absolutely was not. Then Villanova the next year. And then this year, whomever wins, there's going to be playing 1 freshman any minutes. There's only 3 freshmen left in the tournament that were rivals' top 100 recruits. And so what we are seeing is, in this era, there have been 2 champions that were without question one-and-done teams. The Anthony Davis Kentucky team and the last Duke team to win it all that had Justice Winslow, that had Tyus Jones, Trey's older brother, that had Jahlil Okafor. The most talented team is not necessarily the best team for March success. And for me, it presents a really interesting dynamic each and every tournament, which is now the Duke example is the most extreme, where you have the top 3 recruits in the country, the number 1 pick, and 2 other potential top 5, top 6 picks. But you have these 19-year-old phenoms going up against 21 and 22-year-olds who have been in this situation before. That is the situation Virginia has. Purdue had it as well, by the way, and one of the reasons they played as well as they did. Tech has it. Their best player is a sophomore. And so it's not that you can't win a championship with one-and-done players. We know you can. But you're not going to be as big of a favorite as the talent and as the rivals rankings would make you think, because there's also a big difference not only in experience but in ability when a player's 19 and when a player's 21, when a player's had 6 months of collegiate coaching versus 3 years of collegiate coaching.
Even if it's a phenom player.
Absolutely, because it's not like any of these guys playing for any of these big-time schools are bad players. They were all the best player on their high school team, and now they've had 2 or 3 or 4 years of elite-level coaching, and it's a big difference than what you're seeing from a team like Duke this year.
Yeah, people get consumed with just talent. People get consumed with the rankings because that's just the way we do. But really involved in sports is a skill level. And what you see is the one and done, it's about talent, and their skills haven't been developed. So not only the body has matured more, but when I've been in a program 4 to 5 years, you got Kenny Goings, who hits the big bucket, running the out-of-bounds play for Michigan State. He's been there 5 years and knocks down the biggest shot of their season. So it's not only the age that they're battling, but they dribble better. They shoot the ball better. They got better free throws. They do a better job at the pick and roll. And they absolutely, positively play better defense than younger players. So I know in being good friends with Coach Cal there at Kentucky, he realizes what he's up against when the one and done, because no one does it better than him. And there's a lot of connectiveness that goes into sports and into basketball that you can't connect in only 1 year, because the amount of sacrifice that certain players are making is not the same as a young player. So as much as Zion and them were disappointed last night, man, they getting ready to go on a whirlwind tour. They're getting ready to get interviewed by NBA coaches. Now, other guys who that might have been their last basketball game, like, it's totally different. So it's hard to get the buy-in of a third-year junior, fourth-year senior, fifth-year senior, where they have everything. You saw Gonzaga, the kid who made the fatal, where he got the technical foul for touching the ball on the inbounds. You see, he said, I got real-life issues. My basketball career is over with. Real life starts for me right now. So when you're trying to put a team together, you just have to have respect for the whole process for which these kids have gone through, mentally, physically, and their skill level. They're a lot better than the one and dones.
Do you look at what happened this year and say maybe we're better off taking the Villanova approach? Maybe we're better off not going after the flashy guy that you know is going to be there for a year, and we try to groom these players to maybe they're not as good individually, but within their system, they will play better basketball.
Not to me. To me, if you can get the best player in the country, you go get the best player in the country. It's not like the players that Coach K and Coach Cal have gotten, other schools turned them down. It's not like Jay Wright was like, you know what, I'd rather you not play here because you're only going to be here for 1 year.
But Jay Wright and Michigan State and some of these other schools that are just right under, you know, the Kentuckys and the North Carolina and Duke, more so Duke and Kentucky, they're not getting the same kid. They're not going after that same
They're not
kid either.
prioritizing those guys. They're not building their recruiting cycle around getting those guys. But I also think it's part of it's because they know they're probably not going to get them. Coach Cal has perfected it. Coach K over the last few years has done it at as high of a level, if not higher, as far as what the rankings say. But it's just two different ways to build a team. One is going to be constant turnover. The other is building to something greater over the course of a 3 or 4 year cycle.
Coach K's been forced into this. He had to try to duplicate what they were doing at Kentucky because they were recruiting the same kids. Coach K's system is not meant for one and done. That's why in this era, he's only won one championship. I mean, he's had a lot of good basketball teams, but the continuity of college basketball, overall, what you're asking, Jenna, yes, it'd be better off if the kids stayed because they're better basketball players, and the NBA will always be waiting. There's no kid out there getting hurt in college that his career is altered and he can't play in the NBA. So, yes, I believe that if they stayed in school, ultimately we get a better product.
And it's going to be really interesting when this rule goes away in a few years to see the teams that have built it around one and dones, how they adjust. Because now the best of the best are gone, and now it will be about what Izzo and Jay Wright and others have done as far as building something sustainable with players that are going to be there at least 2 or 3 seasons.
All right, good stuff. Take a break. Coming up, does LeBron have any chance of turning things around in L.A.? That's next on First Things First. On Thursday, the countdown to the Cup continues on FS1 as Alex Morgan and Megan Rapinoe lead the U.S. women's national team against fellow World Cup contender Australia. Catch all the action Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern on FS1 and the Fox Sports app.
The Aussies are going down, America.
Back here, Cris Broussard, we're talking LeBron James. The Lakers announced on Saturday they'll shut down the King for the remainder of the season. That means he'll have played just 55 games this year. That's the lowest of his career, probably one of the least memorable seasons of his career as well. Cris, what do you make of LeBron's first season in L.A., if you allow yourself to take a step back?
Well, I think there were 2 positives to this meeting that they had with the players and the players-only meeting. I love the fact that the young guys felt confident enough to voice their opinion. And I love the fact that LeBron accepted it. That's a positive. It shows he respected those guys. So, look, it's obviously a failed season. There's no question. But injuries, no three-point shooting, Anthony Davis.
Coaching, all of it.
Well, yeah, obviously Luke's going to be gone. So it's a failure. But at best, nobody, I don't think you even thought they were getting to the finals.
No.
So at best, we knew it was an experimental season.
But I thought they would. But I thought they would make progress, and I thought they'd get playoff experience, and I thought we would learn something more about the young guys. And that's the sidebar story too. The LeBron injury and the Anthony Davis stuff and the bad coaching is. What do we know about Lonzo going into year 3 that we didn't know going into year 2? I don't know anything. What do we know?
Other than he was a pretty good defender.
Right. What do we know about Ingram that we didn't know going into year 4 that we didn't know going into year 3? I'm not sure, except for he has a major health issue, not just an injury, a health issue. What do we know about Kuz that we didn't know going into this year that we do now? So you didn't even gain information. You didn't gain experience. You didn't gain information. You didn't gain continuity amongst the team. You did gain a legitimate, for the first time in his career, concern about LeBron's durability, which has never been a question mark for him or for any team he's been on. So in every way, this has been a failed season. There's not even like a silver lining. Well, at least that mid-season trade we made, we know you actually gave away your young good center for nothing. There's no part of this season that you can hold on to and say, okay, this makes me feel better.
I know you're a LeBron fan, but I've been a fan of Lakers for a long time. And there's some really diehard Lakers fans. I'm going to give them a silver lining. I never thought Luke Walton was a championship coach.
Okay.
So we got rid of the coach. So at least we can move on. So if we are going to have a parade, I didn't think Luke was going to be up there as the coach of the Lakers. So at least we've moved on to that aspect. And I do believe that the coach they're going to hire will have an influence, because I believe it will be Ty Lue. And Ty Lue has known through the basketball analytics and everything, he knows even though in Cleveland, it took them a couple times to be able to get it right, they know the type of players that need to be around LeBron. So even if you say, Pelinka, I don't know if he can do it. Magic, don't know if he can do it. The silver lining is they got rid of the coach. I believe the next coach is going to be Ty Lue, and I know that Ty understands. Now, if they don't have the players, because I know Ty, you know Ty well, it would have been obvious that Rob Pelinka and Magic Johnson are not fit out for this job if they put together a roster like they did, similar to this year's roster.
And it's not just that Ty Lue knows the players that need to be around LeBron. He knows the style that a LeBron James team has to play. Now, maybe it'll be different at the very end of his career, that he's going to have to change the way he plays. But for the Lakers to be successful next year, you know what LeBron's going to have to be? LeBron, which is ball dominant, run the offense through him.
I don't think that. I think it's at this point in his career, I don't think he can. First of all, that will put more wear and tear on him if he's ball dominant. I think they need to talk to LeBron about being more like a traditional small forward. I think he could challenge for the league scoring title as a small forward. He can give you 39 rebounds. He's going to get his 6-7 assists just because he's such a great passer. But have him on the block a little, getting the ball on the elbow, on the wing. I don't think, because it also would make it easier for other players to play around LeBron. Like, if you want to go after a Kemba Walker. Kemba with LeBron playing the way LeBron's always played, it's not going to work.
Kyrie? Right, not, hold on, but it worked with Kyrie.
Kyrie was a better shooter off the ball than Kemba is. So
That's a good point.
And Kyrie's a better player. Like, they weren't a perfect fit, but Kyrie was so good and LeBron was so good that it could work. Like, I don't think at this stage of his career, LeBron can be the system and lead a team to a championship.
See, and I think that unless they have a total roster renovation this offseason, that you are going to have to rely on LeBron to be the system for one more year.
It's not going. It's going to wear him out at 35 years of age, and you're not going to win. You're not going to beat five-man teams. He had trouble doing that in his prime. You know, beating five-man teams that move the ball, guys can shoot. It's not. He needs to be more a part of a system, and that would, like I said, guys know their roles more. I don't have to wonder, am I bringing it up? Is LeBron bringing it up? Okay. If I'm a point guard and LeBron's bringing it up now I got to adjust on that possession to something else. So I just think it'd be easier for other guys to fit around.
Let's go back to this players-only meeting that they held. Obviously, one of the big issues that was brought up was the body language of LeBron James throughout. There was a specific stretch of the season, and you said he responded pretty well to that. How big of an issue is that? How big of a deal is that?
I mean, look, obviously it's bothersome when a guy is, you know, having all that negative body language when you make mistakes. Some of it's going to happen, and some of it should happen, you know, when guys make mistakes sometimes. But it can't happen all of the time. But the problem is when you're no longer winning, it's an issue. We saw it with Michael Jordan. His last year in Washington was very similar to this, when younger players who had grown up idolizing Michael Jordan couldn't stand him because he led the same way he did in Chicago. He just wasn't leading you to championships anymore. Now, LeBron, we'll see next year, you know, is he, you know, can he lead a team? How far can he lead a team? But if you're not going to win, that stuff's going to be an issue. If you're winning, the players just deal with it.
And listen, this has been who LeBron is, for good or for bad, his whole career. And I know you've talked to people close to LeBron, as have I. And those people, some of his closest confidants and friends, get on him about this. And have told him. And he says the same thing to them he said to those guys. I know. I got to be better. I'll be better. And for some reason or not, he just can't help himself.
Well, sometimes he's moody, and that translates on the court.
Right. And so the passive-aggressive or this thing that he does, that is the palms up looking like, how could you do that? That will be part of him on the court till he retires. Your point is, the reason that it has not been a storyline, hasn't been a players-only meeting, is because the teams have been en route to 50-plus wins, a deep playoff run every year to go along with it, so you deal with it. But it is the least attractive thing on the basketball court he does. It's the most, it's like, come on. It makes you look like you're being a bad teammate, because in the moment you are being a bad teammate, which it goes against his style of play, but it is something that since his rookie year, he's been doing this, and so I don't think he's going to change in year 17.
Well, he's going to have to make adjustments. All human beings are making adjustments. I mean, if if he is who he is, if he did listen to him, he will make adjustments because you're always evolving. And for LeBron to think that, man, from a leadership standpoint, I have it all together, no. And if the Lakers are going to get the best out of him, he's going to need to adjust because Anthony Davis does not have that type of personality. And they trade for him, that's not what he is signed up to see in LeBron's face. Kawhi is not trying to have it. Kyrie Irving, that's one of the reasons why he left Cleveland. So, LeBron, you need to play with other guys. I know you're the only child and everything, and only children can be special in their own little way. But he needs to keep evolving just like other people do. Well, the successful people I know, they're waking up every day and they're trying to make adjustments of how I can get better. And if LeBron wants to look at how he can get better next year, he doesn't have to be that demonstrative on the sideline all the time. And the way it affects players is, and this is what people miss out on, it might not affect me that much, but someone who loves me, my mom, my wife, my brothers and sisters, they're like, man, how you let that dude do that to you?
Right.
And all these kids, typically, they've been the man wherever they've been. They've been the one being demonstrative. So it affects your home life. Forget about the locker room. Man, you get to your car after the game, your girl looking at you like, man, what's up with him?
Well, President Obama joked to Mario Chalmers about it. Remember?
Right. Yep.
Like it was,
Yep.
I mean, that was a decade ago at this point, but everyone notices. And so your point that people that around you are going to say, why do you let him do you like that? Like, what can you do? What position does it put those players in? It's a great point.
Cris, thanks for hanging out today. Appreciate
you.
it. Take a break.
Enjoy
Coming
it.
up,
See you
are
all week,
people
Alex.
sleeping on the Cowboys heading into next season? That's next on First Things First. Back here with Chris Canty. So Vegas announced win totals for NFL teams next season because Vegas knows. The Cowboys were projected by the experts to win 8.5 games, second in the NFC East. This comes after the Cowboys surprised many by winning 10 games and the division last season. Keep in mind, Cowboys still have a number of players that they need and want to sign to extensions after a relatively quiet offseason. All right, Kenny, how do the Cowboys take a step forward this season?
Well, I think the Cowboys have got to start with being a better road team. Last year, they were 3-5 on the road, and if you're looking at the NFC and all the competition that's going to be there with the playoff picture, the Dallas Cowboys want to do everything that they can to put themselves in position to compete for a championship because that's exactly what Jerry Jones said at the Combine. That is the expectation going into this season. We're trying to win. The Final Four last year, they were the top 2 seeds in each respective conference in the playoffs. So a part of the Dallas Cowboys being able to accomplish that is allowing your strength to be your strength. Your offensive and your defensive line. Their offensive line is the top position group in terms of pay allocation on the salary cap in the National Football League. They're getting paid 30% of the Dallas Cowboys cap. The defensive line is 5th most in the National Football League in terms of salary cap allocation. So those groups have to win the day for your team because that's the philosophy. That's how the Dallas Cowboys are built.
And that is such a smart way to look at team building and to look at how effective can we be. If you have the most expensive offensive line in football, and your offensive line is 7th or 8th best in the league, just because you have a top 8 offensive line doesn't mean you're getting the requisite value out of it.
Yep.
It's one of the reasons why some would say we spend too much time dissecting Dak, because while Dak was very ineffective the first half of last year, he's so cheap that he's not killing you as far as your team building stuff. But this is the key to Dallas, because we know they're going to have bit piece additions. I think Randall Cobb's a good addition, and I think an under-the-radar addition was Robert Quinn. And the safety position was a weakness, so bringing in George Iloka, we don't know if he'll work there, but he's not going to be worse than what they had last year. I like all those 3 relatively small additions. But it's the guys you are paying to be stars, playing like stars, and it is Dak being the Dr. Jekyll version instead of the Mr. Hyde version, or the other way around, whichever was the good one. Like, we've seen Dak play 48 NFL regular season games. 24 were quite good, the first 16 and the last 8. The 24 in the middle were not good at all. Can Dak put together a complete season for the first time since his rookie year? Because he's not going to be the dead last ranked starting quarterback in terms of salary anymore. The salary allocation is going to demand that he actually is force multiplier to a degree, like we talk about all the time.
This is the part that I don't like about NFL teams. And I was in Minnesota this weekend and doing some things up there from a media standpoint. They do the same thing with Kirk Cousins. Like, it's not about being good at your position, But now because of his contract, like, it's hard to talk about his overall productivity, about what areas could he be better in the red zone? Could he be better on third down? Like, we can't appropriate how much money someone's making to what we expect from them. Like, we just can't keep fluctuating like that. Dak has been a 3-year starter. Now, he is no rookie. Now, regardless if they play him $30 million or $10 million, we can't keep going up and down. Case Keenum, yes, he's not no regular starter. We can do that with him. But guys who we expect to be the face of a franchise just because they get a pay raise, like, we can't expect Jared Goff now to be like Tom Brady next year when they bump his contract up. I just don't believe. It's hard to really follow the game the right way because you'll never meet those expectations. Like Antonio Brown, he's the highest paid wide receiver again. What if he doesn't have 1,200 yards and 100 catches there in Oakland? He can still have a spectacular year. I believe Dallas can get better, and it just starts with some of the basics. Let's look at the things that we didn't do well. Not based on money. What didn't we do well? Our consistent passing game, our inability to be consistent on the road. If they can get better in those two areas with Randall Cobb being there, offensive line, if it was more consistent, you're going to be a better team on the road. So if they get those things done, they improve in 2019.
But just a quick follow-up on Dak Prescott. You said he had a number of games where he was quite good and then a number of games where he wasn't. If you're going to make Dak Prescott the future, forget the money, just the face of your franchise, you need more than quite good. You need, this is our guy. I mean, maybe Jared Goff isn't phenomenal, but you need, if you're looking at Dak where every year we're like, this will be the year, this will be the year. I mean, you want more than quite good.
Well, I disagree with that to a degree. I think that if the Dak you get moving forward is the last 8 games of the season Dak, which was not one of the 5 or 6 best quarterbacks in football.
And it wasn't year one Dak.
But you can win with that. What you need to avoid is the can't throw for 240 yards in a football game Dak.
Yes.
You go months on end without having a monster game. Like, that's the one you have to avoid. I don't need Dak to be the best quarterback even in his own division because Carson Wentz is there, and that's going to be tough to be. I need Dak not to be a detriment to your team. And to your point, Chris, that if you're going to evaluate a player independent of the contract, which I understand what the reason you'd want to do that. What it just means, I think what Candy's point is that if you're paying a guy more than what his production is, then you need to offset that by a guy who is getting underpaid, essentially, by a guy who is overshooting what his hold on your salary cap is.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, when you get paid in an NFL locker room, there are certain expectations that come along with that. The thought being, because it's a hard salary cap sport, that they're paying you this amount of money because you're going to make the players around you better. And so, CC, I get it. You can't look at everything in a vacuum like that all the time. But in terms of evaluating how a team is built, it lets you understand how this team is going to have to win, what their formula for success is going to have to be.
Right.
And you look at the Dallas Cowboys, they invested a lot of high draft picks and cap resources toward the offensive and defensive line. That's why I always say they have to win today. I think Travis Frederick coming back from that autoimmune disease in 2019 should help. We don't know what we're going to get from him, but I think that could be a question mark that ends up being answered in a positive way for the Cowboys. I like the fact that they did get a complimentary rusher for DeMarcus Lawrence and Robert Quinn. I thought that was a low-risk proposition by Jerry Jones using a late-round draft pick. But ultimately, this is going to have to be about those groups, the offensive and defensive line, based on how the respective coordinators like to call the games. Those groups are going to have to dominate in order for the Dallas Cowboys to have success.
But I'm like Jenna. Dak's got to get better than a game manager. I don't come from the school of thought you guys believing that Dak, how he played in the first 3 years or even the last 8 games, would be satisfactory to what I want from him. I believe there's going to be games where he'll face people like Carson Wentz, and he can leave the stadium saying, I was the best quarterback. I don't believe Dak's going to always be managing the game the way he has done the first 3 years. That's the evolution that you want your quarterback to take. If he is the face of your franchise, and I don't think that they're going to play a style like Baltimore where they're going to try to win 12-9 games. So in doing that, he's going to have to build a throw for 275 to 300 yards on occasion, and be able to do that sometime when he's on the road. That's what I look for Dak Prescott into the future.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.